Okay, this is videos from the book, The Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're in the letter C. We're now on Confucius. We're going to do Confucius and Cyril Connolly and some lesser known names. So Confucius was a Chinese guy. I remember C for China and C for Confucius. He's a philosopher and he emphasized the importance of family and tradition. And he was sort of he reminds me of the courtier, from the Italian Renaissance, Baldassare Castiglione, about how to behave. Okay. He was popularized by a guy named Mencius, and he's really not religious, okay? This is not a God religion. This is a guy named Confucius who was a smart guy. And he promoted the golden rule. That's promoted by most smart people, but it's not. See, people think, Confucianism or Buddhism is God. They're godless religions, really, if you want to call them religions. And it's almost like a form of legalism. And he's got some good quotes. Here's some quotes of Confucius. He said, better to be a diamond with a flaw than a perfect pebble. Yeah, and I can tell you, I studied all these geniuses and great men, and they all had, major problems or craziness. And so if you don't want that, then you won't have any geniuses. Okay, Confucius, he says, a good man teaches me what to do. A bad man teaches me what to avoid doing. Yeah, and I call that the anti-role model. Like I had a friend, and he worked 2 jobs so he could make more money to buy a better house for his wife and kids, and then his wife cheated on him. They got divorced, and because he had 2 simultaneous jobs, he had to pay double alimony. He was basically sold into slavery, working 6 days a week for the next 20 years. And he's kind of autistic, so he didn't mind so much, but still he got screwed. So that's my anti-role model. The goal of a superior man is truth. Yeah, that's pretty well known. That's what a genius really wants, is what's the truth on a subject he studies. Confucius, the superior man understands what is right. The inferior man understands what will sell. You have to be motivated by the truth in order to make great achievements because it takes so much energy to do stuff. Confucius quotes continue. The superior man is distressed by his want of ability. Yeah, and so basically your ability is in proportion to your goals at what matters. People say to me, oh, you're so lucky, you're so smart. And my problem is I don't have enough time. I got tons of ideas that I want to do. I just have to waste so much of my time working in conventional medicine. Conventional medicine is working in assembly line. I'm a highly educated assembly line worker. And don't get me wrong, it's okay. I do have some fun over at the hospital. I like talking to my smart doctor buddies, and I see a couple interesting cases every day, but most of it's a grind. I really wish I could do more time with research, writing books and stuff, because I can figure out a lot of these things. But you need a sponsor for that. And a sponsor usually wants you to sell out, but I'm never going to sell out. So it is what it is. Okay, learning without thought is labor lost. Yeah, so if you just memorize stuff, you usually don't retain it. You got to conceptualize it and show how it matters to you in your life, your job, or in the context of your other thoughts to enable you to keep the knowledge. Confucius continues. Cultivate the root and the branches and leaves will take care of themselves. The first step to solving a problem is to correctly describe the problem. Those who do not study are only cattle dressed up in men's clothes. Okay. The next guy is William Congreve. He lived from 1670 to 1729. He's a guy who said, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And so that's the thing too. All this modern stuff about pretending men and women are the same is totally not true. And they said, if you think women are rational, ask yourself what happened when you broke up with one of them. Okay. Every guy I know from high school age will tell you a story of when he broke up with a girl, she just went crazy and started behaving insane. Women are very emotional. They go like this, up and down, up and down. If you look at the brain of a female on pituitary, premenopausal female, they got this giant pituitary. It's like twice the size of a man because of their menstrual cycle. That's the only thing that's obviously different when you look at a woman's brain on MRI. But in real life experience, like a guy, you don't even need to look at his face at work. Hey, how you doing? With a woman, you got to look at her face and see what kind of a mood is she in today. Is she positive towards you, negative towards you? Does she want you to talk? Yes or no? Does she want you to approach? Yes or no? And anytime you meet a woman, there's this whole she does a mini mental status psych exam on you. Why are you talking to me? Why do you want to talk to me? Are you hitting on me? It's weird, but you have to go through this whole thing. With a guy, there's none of that. It says, hey, how you doing? Men don't care. Whereas with a woman, there's this intense psychological analysis of everything. William Congreve, courtship is to marriage as a very witty prologue is to a very dull play. Okay, now we're going to get to something that I actually find more interesting. This is Cyril Connolly, and he's a writer from 1903 to 1974. He made a couple good comments on great writers. He said, the only function of a writer is to produce a masterpiece, and no other task is of consequence. So what I got out of that is just that basically, if you want to do something great with writing, you pretty much have to give up a lot of other things in your life. Like I knew that I had to work long hours as a conventional doctor. The only way I could write a book is if I didn't do anything else. So I was okay with that. I mean, once I had switched from being a surgeon to being a neuroradiologist primarily at my conventional job, I didn't need to carry a cell phone. I didn't really need to socialize very much. So I sort of almost like went into a retreat where I could just focus on writing the books I wanted to write. Because nobody knew what the heck was going to happen a couple years ago. And I had all these books in my head. I wanted to get them down on paper. So I just basically simplified my life completely. I had already been in the process of doing that, but that's what it takes. If you read about these great writers, like Robert Pirsig when he wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, he'd go to bed, at like 8 o'clock at night, wake up at 2 a.m. and then just write. You always write best in the morning. It's when you're smartest, after your brain's cleaned itself through the lymphatic system of your brain at night while you're sleeping. So you just crank, and then you have to go to work after that, and you have to just figure it out. So for me, that's what it was. No cell phone. I wouldn't even answer emails for months on end, and I was able to get a tremendous amount of work done. I published 6 books in 1 year. That's how I did it. Next quote from Cyril Connolly. Better to write for yourself and have no public than to write for the public and have no self. Basically, if you self-publish a book, you can write whatever you want, and that's going to be a better book. If you have a publisher, the publishers, what they're good about doing is they're great at marketing a book. Other than that, they're a pain in the butt to deal with. They lower the quality of the book, and they delay everything. Typically, to get a book done with a publisher, it's going to take 1 or 2 years. Versus on your own, you can crank it out and you can just publish it fast. Cyril Connolly. The dread of loneliness is greater than the fear of bondage, so we stay married. Cyril Connolly. If one is too lazy to think, they will never attain wisdom. Okay, he continues. The reward of art is not fame or success, but intoxication. That is why so many bad artists are unable to give it up. The artist of today walks at first with his companions, till one day he falls through a hole in the brambles, and from that moment is following the dark rapids of an underground river, which may sometimes flow so near the surface that laughing picnic parties are heard up above. Yeah, and sort of what I get out of that is once you sort of get advanced in a subject and you're pursuing new lines of thought that no one else has ever done before, you're out on your own. Like I can tell you, at the local hospitals that I work at and that I know a lot of doctors and stuff, there's not a single doctor in those places that's capable of having an intelligent conversation with me about pathophysiology. Because all they know is the conventional books, but almost all the useful information, it's not in the conventional books. So none of them knows this stuff. And it's sort of like, it'd be nice if there was someone to talk to, but basically I'm on my own. And, they're making money, so they don't really care. And I have a few real smart doctors that I have conversations with here and there, but there's nobody. I don't know a single doctor who's made an effort to really understand pathophysiology. I actually know some smart pathologists that are kind of fun to talk to. But yeah, you'd be amazed what percentage of doctors actually have a decent general knowledge of disease causation and treatment and stuff. It's very few. It's about I'd say about a 1 out of 1,000, if that much. So it's kind of a joke, but a hospital is a place where nobody knows anything about disease, disease causation and disease treatment. They know how to sell drugs, they know how to do surgery, they know how to interpret imaging tests, pathology tests and stuff. But in terms of what causes this disease, go ask a couple of doctors. What causes hypertension? What causes dementia? What causes atherosclerosis? What causes diabetes? They won't know. And I'm talking senior attendings. I'm talking the heads of departments. They won't know. You'll be amazed at how little they know because they've been brought up in the school of selling drugs, not of understanding disease. Okay, Cyril Connolly continues. Poets arguing about modern poetry are jackals snarling over a dry well. Yeah, it's a bunch of fake garbage like modern art. Okay, Cyril Connolly. The function of an artist is to bring imagination to science. I think that's a good one. And so what I get out of that one is sort of the idea of teaching or of developing a subject. The really good papers, they're usually written with some cleverness to them, some narrative form. They're more narrative than logic. Like a good example is that Douglas Kell, PhD from England, when he wrote the paper about iron metabolism, he called it iron behaving badly because everybody thinks iron is such a great thing. And it's a great paper. And you write it like a story. So that's how the great scientists will write their papers, like stories and narratives, rather than sort of dry logic. That's pretty boring. Okay, one last quote from Connolly. Vulgarity is the spice of salad. Spice in the salad of taste. Okay, that was kind of a weak quote. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Cyril Connolly, and then earlier we did Confucius.